demo that I'm going to do is about one of the areas in the software development which is gaining a lot of attention, a lot of traction across the board, which is called the low code, no code paradigm of software development. So every other software vendors, independent software vendors like SAP, big names like SAP, Salesforce, all of them now have a component in their suite uh, which allows non-coders or business users, or you can call them citizen users, normal users, to be able to produce meaningful software uh, end-to-end solutions without having to learn or know any amount of coding or any requirement to do any amount of coding to achieve an end-to-end meaningful software digital flow. So I'm going to show a short demo how the same low code, no code feature can be enabled, is inherently working in the Frappe framework. So Frappe is a web development framework, and so it has a bunch of apps. For one of its leading app is called ERP Next, which caters to a lot of domains. So the demo that I'm going to show today uh, is in a typical hospital setting. So the EHR is implemented, the ERP is implemented. So imagine all of this. The hospital stack is on a Frappe stack, with the Frappe Healthcare for all the EHR part, and ERP connecting with all the operational aspects of the hospital. Now, the psychiatric department has a requirement to develop a web form to send out to all the patients, an online web form to send out to all the patients in the psychiatric department to capture their mental assessment. So it's a questionnaire, and the form has to be sent, and then the patients has to fill out the form, and then and based on the inputs the patients are filling, the score is generated for the patient. So to generate the mental assessment score, and the score is finally sent out to the patients in an automated way to their email inboxes. So this is a simple workflow, very simple. We need a form, the data needs to be captured, and an automated a computation which generates the score, and the score is sent in an automated way to the patient's inbox. So let's see how this can be achieved. Even a doctor who may not know coding can actually develop this form on the Frappe framework and enable this end-to-end flow with very minimum coding requirement or absolutely no coding at all. So let's take a look at how this works end to end. All right, let's see how the low code, no code feature is can be implemented end to end on the Frappe Web framework. So, as I mentioned, the scenario is to create an end to end workflow for mental health assessment. And so the components we need is a web form for the patient to fill out, which can be shared as an URL, and a backend data capture, a table where whenever the patients fill out the forms, the data is stored, and also to generate the assessment score based on a logic, and finally to be able to send out the score of the patient, the generated score, to the patient's inbox. So let's see how this works first. So I've already implemented this in the on the ERP Next Frappe Healthcare module, or any on the Frappe Healthcare module. So let's look how it works. So right now I'm looking into the Frappe Healthcare module. So I have I have this site already has, I've already created it. So it's a quick demo first, and then we'll go in. Then we will basically create the same thing from the scratch on a different site. So I have mental health assessment list. So these are the patient data, which has come and stored in the database. So this is our database table called mental health assessment. So these are the patients who have submitted. So the score is generated 50. So let's look at the web form. So the web form which is connected to this table or a doc type. So in the Frappe terminology, the table is called a doc type. So we can go to the web form which is actually connected to this doc type. Okay, so this is the web form. So all the fields of the form, etc. So let's see how it works. All right, so this is what the patient gets, the link to fill up their details. So I'm going to just add up a patient. Susan Lewis. Susan Lewis. So I'm just going to give the date of birth. So age 41. Teacher, mobile number. I'm going to give my email ID so that we can see the notification working correctly. So these are the assessment questions. How often do you experience? Often do you exercise regularly? How often do you eat fruits and vegetables? Sometimes. How often do you sleep? 8 to 10 hours per night. Sometimes. So these are the questions. I'm just going to fill them up quickly. Right. So I have so Susan Louis has filled up the form and she is submitted. All right. So the form is submitted. Now let's see the data which has come on the backend. So all right, so this Susan's data is reached. So this is the view of the admin view or the practitioner view who logs in and he can see the forms which are submitted or saved by the patients. So now Susan Lowe's data is captured here, all the data, and this the document is in a draft state. So now we have this option here to submit for scores. So score field is empty, there is nothing here. So submit for score. So I perform this action as a doctor. I perform this action to generate the score. All right, the score is generated 61.53. Right. So based on a logic which works internally, the score is generated. And now I think I should be receiving an email. So to this email, an email comes with my score. So let's wait for the email. So email can take a while to come. So I'm just pausing. All right. So I have my email in the inbox. Mental health score of Susan Louis. Your mental health score, dear Susan. Here is your mental health score. All right, so this is the desired workflow that the hospital psychiatric department wants to create. So let's look how this is created on an actual ERP Next healthcare website or healthcare application. So I have another a site which is actually I have another site which is actually which doesn't have any of these data types, these uh, any of these forms related to the mental health. So quickly going there. So this is a totally new site. So this basically doesn't even have the healthcare module. That is okay. So this form doesn't require to have the healthcare module. So let's see. So let's first create the entity or the table in the Frappe Frappe terminology, it's called the doc type. So let's first create the doc type for mental health assessment. Okay, so I'm going to add a new doc type. I'm calling it. Uh, so the steps that I'm going to do has will require absolutely no coding. It is just through this feature called doc type, which is actually a form which captures the meta information of how the actual table should look in the application. So I will just assign a module for this. So let me just put it under contacts module. So it's a submittable doc type. I can support a quick entry if required, not required. So yeah, so there are track changes. All right. So now these are the fields of the form. So basically here in the previous site, the form has so many fields, right? Name, assessment score. So these are the sections. The patient details are one section, and the assessment part is another section. So we need to actually create these sections and these form fields. If you look at how it is, how this doc type looks in this site, this is how it looks. See, you have the assessment score, section break, name. This is a section break, and then the score, which is a data type. Then the next section for the patient details, for patient first name, last name, age, and then a bunch of mandatory fields. So if you can, there are more other fields, other things that we can do for the first name field, mandatory, and then you can have visibility set like hidden, bold, etc. Also read only, make it read only, etc. So for example, if the score field, if I want to just make it a read only field, I can do that. So save it, and I go to this mental assessment form. So if you look at this, it's a read only, right? It doesn't really, yeah. So the score field is not visible, but when it is available, it is going to be a read only field. All right. So now coming back to our the news site, this we need to fill up all the form fields. So to make it fast, I already have those fields captured in a JSON format. So I'm just going to copy that out here. So just going to paste it. So it basically copies the entire field values over here, and I'm just going to call it mental. Is this meant the same name? Mental health assessment. This is on this website, and it's the mental health assessment. And here, since the healthcare module is not there, I'm just going to use a contacts module. Yeah, so I don't want this quick entry. I'll avoid that. And this one, I will just score. I will just make it a read only, so that nobody tampers with it, right? So that's all good. So I'm going to save this. So there is a small mistake here. So this is how the naming or the main the document name will appear in this format. So we can specify the sequencing of how the form should look, how the each time a record is created, how the primary key should look like. So I'll just. All right, so my mental assessment form is created in this new site, mental health assessment. And so let's take a look. So there is no data. Yeah, so these are previously I had added, so it is appearing again. That's okay. So I'm So this is my mental health assessment data. Um, form, mental assessment form. Now, the table is created, the doc type is created. Now we need to connect it to a web form, right? So I need to create a web form which can be shared with the patient. So I need to add a web form, new web form, and the doc type is mental health assessment. And so here I can get the fields. So I get the whole the entire fields of the doc type, this mental assessment doc type. And I can go ahead and so it also gives a bunch of settings here. You can enable login if you want, printing, bunch of things, bunch of settings, everything through just clicks, and some values that you can add, right? So okay, so I also have this form also in a selected JSON data form. So I'm just going to update it here with that one. So module, I'll just leave it, and put it contacts. Right. So this is essentially my, I'll call it MHA web form. Okay, so the web form is also created. Now let's see how it looks on the UI. All right, so this is my web form. So let me add the text here. I appreciate you fill out this text and form for us to be able to serve, serve you better with respect to help, mental health. All right. So it allows some basic text formatting. I'll just put it at 2. I can give it a nice color, right? So let's refresh this form. All right, so this is what the patient sees. So we have created the form, we have created the doc type, the table, and the form as well. All right, so now let's see, let's fill up this form. So I'm just going to add a John Doe. Okay, so just filling up these values. Okay, some of it I'm skipping. All right, so I'm just saving it. All right, so now this form is submitted. Let's see in this it's come or not. All right, so just came now. It reached the mental assessment data just was is been received in the backend, and yeah, so all of this is there, but there is no action. We don't have an action. Oops. All right. So we were able to capture John Doe, and here we just have a submit. So if you submit, uh, basically the previous demo we saw that the score is getting generated, and we had a workflow for generate submit for scores, right? So now we need to implement that workflow. So if you go to the previous one, sorry, so many tabs open here. Yeah, so for this previous one, if you go here, uh, any of the ones. Okay, so let me just add one quickly. So you get an action to submit for scores, right? So and your score is generated, right? So the previous one has this option, but now we need to add the same thing for our new site. So now we need to, that is achieved through a feature called workflow. So let's go and add a workflow. So this is our John Doe, and we have submitted it, but nothing happened, right? Nothing happened. Right. So next, now we need to add the workflow for John Doe. Workflow list. Sorry, workflow for this mental assessment score doc type. So, so this is where we have to specify a workflow, and I do have the data for the workflow also pre-selected. So I'll just add them up here. So it's called mental health registration workflow. Doc type is again mental health assessment, and so these are the states of the workflow states: draft, submitted, cancel, and these are the transition rules. So you have a draft, you can have submit for scores. This next state is submitted, and submitted, if it is in a submitted state, we can cancel the document as well. So now here there is a slight problem with these roles. These roles doesn't exist because this site is not a healthcare module. Doesn't have a healthcare module. So we'll just use it with a normal kind of with any other module. Let's use it for accounts user and accounts manager. Yeah. So, all right. So we have our workflow ready. Now let's see the our document. Let's see if it gives you an option. Yeah, submit for scores is now available. Is available, but now we don't have any logic associated to this. So there is no way we are able to generate a score without a calculation of the score, right? So that is where now. So till so far we created the web form. We created the table, we created the web form, we are able to capture the web form without absolutely doing any code at all. So that covers the no code aspect of Frappe framework. Now we can have a very small flavor of coding we can inject from the front end. I would very carefully use the word inject because it can mean some security threats also. So I'm not going to be using. I mean, I'll avoid using that word. But Frappe provides us interfaces to add simple Python code or JavaScript code from the front end. So to add a small Python code, there is a feature, there is an interface called server script. So I'm going to add a small server script. Let me call it as mental health as MHA service score script. All right, so it is going to be for which doc type is our reference doc type. It's mental health assessment. All right, so I will just copy the content from a previously selected one. MHA score script. All right, so this is a script, a very rudimentary Python code, just a bunch of if-else condition to basically make an assessment of the to arrive at a value, right, for the score. Okay, so and it updates this doc dot score with this value. So we are associating it with this mental assessment doc type. All right, so I'm just before submit this event happens and the script runs. All right, so now let's go and see, uh, let's try and generate the score for our patient. Great. So I shoot the action, submit for scores, and the score is generated. The script is called and the score is generated. All right, so far so good. So we are now able to generate the score as well. So the only code we added is the server script through the interface of called server script. Okay, now I want to be able to configure an email notification to be sent to the email here. So let's see how that works. So for that, we have to go to the interface called notification list. So I can add a notification. So let me do that. So I call it MHA email notification. So channel is email. All right. So and the subject. So here you can it gives you an option to in the subject line to actually dynamically pick up some values from the parent doc type, that is mental assessment doc type. So doc dot first name, that's the field name of for the first name. Uh, uh, matches for this is a subject on submit, send alert on submit, sender. So we have an outgoing email configured. So choose an outgoing email configured. And yeah, so now I need to add a recipient. Okay, so recipient is going to be the email address of the patient, which he submits from the online form. However, I don't have that listed here, so I need to do that. That is again a configuration I need to do. So let me go to the form. I need to do a small edit in the doc type. So this is the email field. So I'll just have an option for email here. So this will allow to for this notification to actually retrieve the option for using the email as a recipient. So let's see now. So I guess I need to save it. So the subject and the sender is this is the email account configured for sending out emails, and doc type is mental health assessment. And let's see now if I get that email field as a yeah. So I have this recipient as the email field. All right. So far so good. Now I need to. This is the message body that I can configure here. So it allows you to have some HTML formatting, CSS, and all that. So I'll just copy this and your MHA score. So dear, dear doc type first name. And I can put an H2 tag for this score. So score is the field we want to show it here. It's closing the H2 tag. All right, so this should actually trigger an email. Oops. Alert on submit. So we want to send the email on submit of the document, of this document. So we do that. So the email is also configured. Now let's try for a new patient. So all right, so this is the new form. So let me add for a new patient. Susan Lee, date of birth. I'm going to use my own email so that we can see it working as it comes to my inbox. All right, so I'll just give a good, hopefully Susan gets a good score. So, all right, so the Susan completes the form, and now the doctor should be receiving the data on the back end, right? And now the doctor goes and submit for scores, performs this action. Wow, the score is generated. Susan has a great score, 88.46. And now, ideally, the email gets triggered to Susan. So it will take at least 5 minutes for the email server to send the email to the inbox. So it will be queued, and then in a short time, the email will be sent. So I'll just pause and then wait for the email to come. All right, there you go. So I have the email in my inbox. As soon as the score is generated, yeah. So Susan's MHA score, which was my subject line for that email notification, and this is the message: your MHA score, dear Susan. Here's your score. You are doing great. Score is 88.46. All right, great. So that's how easy and convenient to build an end-to-end digital flow in Frappe and ERP Next. And at the same time, there are many other features you can layer it on top of this. Like you can restrict certain roles to access certain fields. The role permissions can be configured at a very granular manner. All of those, right? So yeah, so this is just a very basic flow, end-to-end flow of how we can achieve, we can do low code, no code on the Frappe framework. Hope this video was helpful. Please do watch out for our YouTube channel for more videos, more technical content, and do subscribe so that you might get notified whenever we launch a new educational video. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.